back to the Geary Theory. I'm your host, Lauren Geary, and today we're talking to Emily Grace Rainey. Now, she's somebody you can Google. I'm going to say her name again, Emily Grace Rainey. Google her. She's been featured with Tucker Carlson. She's also had many mainstream news outlets pick up on stories about her political activism. And that being said, at the time she was going through many of these rallies she's organized and political protests she's done, there was somebody that stood along her side and supported her, agreed with her, encouraged her. And that was her partner at the time and the father of her child. Like I said, he agreed with this. He supported it. He encouraged it. And he's decided to now use it against her in a battle over custody of their son. I want to tell you that the court said, we can't look at that. We're looking at her as a mother. Is she a good mother? They didn't do that. In fact, the court has said she is a good mother, but they have agreed with his bias on her against her conservative Christian values and have then given him full custody. So she goes from a stay-at-home homeschooling mother where she was with her son every day to now getting visitations every other weekend. I don't even know what to say. I wish I could tell you this is a one-off thing and she's just experiencing an insane injustice, but it's not. She has since been flooded with messages once her story went viral with a video. She's been flooded with messages of parents around the country who are experiencing the same political and Christian and religious biases and losing custody of their children because of it. Is it just me? Are we in America where religious freedom should be, upheld? Crazy. I think we as parents, am I wrong? Tell me if I'm wrong. Isn't our job as parents to fight for the future of our country for the sake of our children? Aren't our children the greatest thing we can do to say, I believe in the future of this country, therefore I'm going to have children so they can believe, so they can live in this future that I believe in? I think it's the greatest thing you can do to invest in this country is to have a child in it. Our job as parents is to make sure that our children have the best future ahead of them. Emily's in a situation where they're telling her because she fought for that future that she believes in, she does lose rights of her child. That's not right. That's not the America that I believe in. I want you to listen to her story. And I want you to think how we can, as parents, overall do better for fighting for the future of our children. This is what I'm going to say about Emily. They picked the wrong mother. They honestly picked the wrong mother. Listen to the story, get caught up on what she's experiencing, then I want you to go and follow her and watch as she takes down this government industry of taking her child away. She hasn't had her child for 17 days since she lost custody. She's seen him, but it's been 17 days since she lost custody. I want you to go follow her after this because I'm telling you, they picked the wrong mother. She will get custody back. She will get custody back, but we need to fight with her. So listen to this podcast, learn her story, and then spread this story. We need people to be more aware of this and give her the support she needs. All right, let's get into it. Emily, thank you so much for joining me today. I am so excited to talk to you. You have such a powerful story. And that the fact that your child, you lost custody of your child because of something that of your faith in this country is absolutely like unbelievable to me. So what happened? I guess let's back up because I know you have a lot of political activism. You're very vocal about your faith, which I love. And so what got you on the path before the custody battle of being so politically active and so outspoken with your beliefs?
Well, thanks for having me on, Lauren. And I think I would say before 2020, I was fairly politically apathetic, and I was only a fairly recent revert back to Catholicism. I grew up cradle Catholic, like many people, fell away from the church in my 20s, just led the worst kind of life, looking back, it's just kind of what the normal 20s experiences in America today.
Yeah.
But, the more I deepen in my faith, the more, realize how debauched and perverse like those years really were. And it took getting pregnant out of wedlock with my son to really wake me up, as Christ oftentimes does do that, like hits us in the head with a 2x4 when we haven't listened to any of his like whispers and urgings. So that's when I found traditional Catholicism. That's when I found the Latin Mass, and I started like really going back and like relearning everything that I had been taught that was erroneous, and then just really wanting and making my Catholicism back part of my identity. And at the time, my son's father and I were not married. We never ended up getting married, but he was previously divorced. So it was always, a requirement. We're Catholic, or I'm Catholic. He still wasn't. You're going to need to get an annulment. So he requested for an annulment after he converted to Catholicism, and they never granted it. And I'm so thankful to God for the fact that he protected me from this person, because from the very beginning, it was not a healthy relationship and only got worse as time went on. And in the midst of everything that was happening at home, which I thought I was like strong and tough enough to handle, I was gonna deal with his mental health issues. I was gonna deal with, his vices, and I was gonna use that as penance for all my, years away from the faith, and for my, out of wedlock child that I now have, son. His name is Eli.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the world, decided to go collectively crazy in 2020.
A little bit. Yeah.
Just lost it. So I was a new mom. I was a special operations officer, a psychological operations officer, which just means that I was a professional propagandist for the military. And this does actually play a big role in me realizing everything in 2020, because I could reverse engineer the propaganda almost immediately. And in fact, I remember exactly where I was in the 2 weeks to slow the spread. You remember that?
Yeah, it was like, oh my gosh. It's when the population jumped again. We got a lot of COVID babies.
Everyone's like so bored, and they're home. So I remember it was late at night. I had just finished watching the news, as we were all like glued to the news. We were all looking at the death tolls and all of that. And I just realized, wait a second, this is a psyop. I see it clear as day. I can reverse engineer it. I do this for a living to our enemies and neutral populations abroad in the areas that the United States wants to influence, right? So with multiple deployments under my belt to Iraq and Afghanistan, I was just like, I gotta do something. Like, I have to tell people. And my mom,
crazy,
God bless her, she'd always, she had a little conspiracy theorist. I think you said like your dad is. So
yeah,
I grew up kind of hearing about like the New World Order and the Illuminati and the Freemasons and all of this. And I just remember thinking, holy crap, I think she might be right, and wait a second. And I was very like highly respected in my career field. I had a lot of awards. I, was one of the first women in combat. I deployed with the Rangers.
It's amazing.
And well, I put a brick in the wall for feminism, which now I'm like trying to kick down. Like, I'm like, dang it, why did I do that? So I just felt like very, very early on, having no social media presence whatsoever, having never gone to a protest other than maybe the pro-life ones when my mom would bring me to as a kid. Like, I'd never gone to a protest. I was, sometimes I voted, sometimes I didn't. In the military, it can be kind of inconvenient to re-register every time you move, or if you're deployed, if you're abroad for a training exercise, like you just kind of miss it. And it's very common for military, despite the fact that we're fighting for freedom, we don't end up voting, right?
It is really ironic because you guys are the ones that lives are on the line when somebody makes a decision.
And
But
it's so much a problem that like at the company level, which is, you know, give or take like 50 to 100 soldiers, like there's always a soldier or an NCO, non-commissioned officer, like identified as like, you are the voting rep, get everybody to vote because this doesn't look good that none of us vote. Okay. So anyway, that's kind of who I was. I was very motivated, very ambitious, career oriented. And even though I had a young son, he was a year old or a year and a couple of months by the time COVID in March of 2020 rolled around. You know, I had a nanny, I was still working full time. And my son's father was living in Tennessee because if you're not married, the military doesn't station you together just because you have a child together. You know, so, and, you know, I'm not getting married to him because of the red flags, but also because no annulment, right?
I have to say too, that is really refreshing to hear that you're one of the first people I've talked to in life where not getting an annulment is a positive. It's like, whoa, like, you know, I think people get more mad at the church for not giving them annulments than you actually say, well, maybe the church in this situation was protecting me. So that was really cool to hear that just now, that
well, it's
it
kind
was
of
like
that,
a positive.
you know,
Yeah.
It's that Garth Brooks, you know, thanking God for unanswered prayers song. You know, I think about that all the time. I'm a country fan, especially 90s and early 2000s country.
Yeah.
So I think about that all the time. And I used to pray for that. I used to pray saying, like, if you don't want me to marry this man, please don't let this go through. Now, you know, we're traditional Catholics. We attend an SSPX parish right now. And so his annulment was submitted through the SSPX, and they have a very rigorous tribunal system. And so years went by and there was still no annulment. And I'm just like, I get it, you know, and I already knew because things were escalating at home and getting worse and worse. But I'll finish up that story later because it comes back around like into recent days. Okay. So
So at this time, you both are living a Catholic life, trying to go on that path.
He's not a Catholic yet, but you know,
at that point he was living.
We're celibate. Yeah. He's in another state. We see each other once a month. Either he flies to us or Eli and I fly to him.
Okay.
And we're like a couple, as best as you can describe the strange position that we're in, given the fact that you can't really date when you're still married, but you have a child together. So, you know, we were talking to our priest this whole time. And obviously once disorder enters into your life, it can be very pastorally difficult to navigate. And priests have a hard time with like the tangled webs that we weave now in our own lives with our own sins. Giving us like good advice. Obviously, he wasn't going to tell us, hey, like you can't talk or like be a family because we are one, but also we're not one.
It is, especially for those families that like reconvert when they've already remarried and now they have kids together, and it's so definitely you're in that boat.
Well, I like to consider myself like a walking, talking billboard for like what young people should not do. You know, like this is why the church is so wise when it, you know, it tells you, you know, not, I mean, obviously Christ and the Bible and everything else also tells you do not have any premarital sex, but, you know, their reasons are for our own good. And I am a perfect example of that. Like my life is infinitely harder because of the mistakes that I made than they would have been if I hadn't. So the church, as our like good mother, was like looking out for me and giving me good advice, and I just ignored her, you know? So anyway, 2020, the world is crazy. I decide I'm going to do something, and I just make this little Facebook group, and I just start going on to other social media in my local area and just like making little kind of incendiary comments against the lockdowns and against the 2 weeks to slow the spread. And I started doing a lot of research on like flu deaths and like what we did during other pandemics in history. And it just started making me realize, like, there is nothing scientific or medical about any of the things that they're saying or doing. And so I started kind of poking the bear in other social media groups. And if I got a like or a good comment, I would just go to that person's page, friend them, send them a message, invite them to my private Facebook group, which was just, I called it Moore County Citizens for Freedom, because I lived in Moore County. And I was just like, okay. And very quickly, I had thousands of people from my local area, from my own county, which only has 100,000 people in it, in my group. And
it's amazing.
And I start doing just local things to resist. We would have what I called Patriot Lightning Strikes, where we would just go to random places in like a flash mob, like sing, like God Bless America,
awesome.
Wave a flag, say a prayer, and then everyone would peace out. And it was fun, and we needed fun.
Sounds fun.
In that time, we would do no mask shopping days, where if you felt really uncomfortable about going to the grocery store, like without a mask, or going, to a restaurant without a mask, we would just all go, like everybody, hey, save your shopping for Tuesday at the Harris Teeter at, between the hours of 3 and 5. And then you'll know everybody in there, because nobody will be masked, and you're not going to get harassed because there's 50 other people in here that are not masked. And what
would the shops do when you guys did that? Like, did they try it all to stop and they just gave up, or?
No, they could do nothing when you go in there, like in a sit-in like style. And we would do that with restaurants.
Awesome.
And so then I developed local, what I called pro O2, oxygen, and anti O2 lists. So anytime anybody from my group or in the county was ever harassed for not wearing a mask, that business went on the list, blacklisted, and everybody would, and I would update that list daily, constantly be pushing out the list. And then like pro O2 places would be places that like their employees didn't have to mask, or they never said a peep or looked at you sideways, and so those businesses started doing really well in our county. Whereas the other ones, like I had businesses reaching out to me and being like, hey, like we're losing business because of what you put us on this list. And I'm like, well, if you agree to retrain your employees and take away your policy, then I'll take you off the list. Like we as a collective were wielding a lot of power locally, to the point where now I'm getting invitations to speak at like different conservative events locally. Right. So, and then we start getting involved in the school board races. And I mean, it just took off in terms of our local grassroots. We completely swept the school board race that year. All of the candidates that my group chose all got elected. We made tons of changes in the schools that were amazing, including no masking. I had an incident at the school in a school board meeting where I was physically removed because I refused to mask during it. But on Memorial Day of 2020, I went to the local park with my son, who was not quite 2, which is like his favorite place in the world. He's like a little boy, right? So the park is like his thing. And I live streamed myself, but not publicly, but like in the private group. But the private group is big at this point.
So there's a mole probably.
Live streamed myself taking down the caution tape and telling everybody to come play because the park is open, And someone called the police, some Karen called the police show up, and they cited me for vandalism, for taking down. And I said, this is trash. I'm cleaning it up.
I mean, in vandalism, you're taking down plastic tape.
Well, the CDC had just come out the day before saying that like COVID doesn't live on surfaces the way they were saying that that it lived on surfaces for months, Yeah. And I'm like, this is Memorial Day weekend. Like, I do have friends who, I was in the military for 10 years in the special operations community. You have a higher KIA rate, higher rate of severe wounding and maiming from all of the extra deployments that we're doing, like multiple times a year, oftentimes. And so I'm like, how my friends died for this, my friends died for freedom, and we can't play at the park. Why?
Yeah.
Because because some governor in North Carolina wants to be a tyrant. You know, like, we had tea parties in the Boston Harbor for less than this, you know?
Yeah.
And it just,
Yeah.
it was just, it was beyond my, it was just so unfathomable. Now, at this point, I'm getting a little, you know, warnings and stuff like that at work, right? Because I'm still an active duty special operations officer. I'm a captain. I'm a senior captain. So I'm about to be a field grade officer in the special, underneath United States Special Operations Command at Fort Bragg in North Carolina. And after I took down the caution tape and got the citation, there was a court date, and there was a protest scheduled for that day from my supporters, which, you know, the district attorney, who was a Republican, her name was Maureen Kruger. She doesn't live in the state anymore, but she just saw all of the nonsense and she just dropped the charges. She's like, we're not prosecuting this. But the Parks Department for the town of Southern Pines, North Carolina, did ban me for a year. But then I had all of these private gym owners, indoor playgrounds, recreation centers, all gave me like free year-long passes, you know, thanking me for what I did. And then so that my son and I still had places to go. We didn't have to like not go anywhere. Amazing. For that year. There's a lot of good people in this country, and there's just, they need, what they need is to see, they want to back people who are bold. And like, if you are somebody that has that God-given temperament, and, you know, I realize that I do, I think that, you know, this is, I know it's not normal. You know, I look around and I can see that it's like, not everybody's willing to say and do and the things that I have. And that's not from myself, you know, like, God made me like this. And so there's a reason. And it's because people want to follow a standard bearer, like somebody that's willing to like take up that torch and take the hits, take the slings and arrows and like kind of attract all the bullets, you know?
Have you ever seen the movie Braveheart?
Of course.
Yeah. So I just am hearing that scene where William Wallace is talking to Robert the Bruce, and he's like trying to figure out, why are so many people following this guy, you know? And William Wallace says to Robert the Bruce, like, my gosh, I used to memorize this movie, but basically he's like, we're just looking for someone to lead us to freedom. And he's like, I would follow you if you lead me to freedom. And it was said so much more eloquently in the movie. But
I said that, chills, like, even though you didn't get it right.
But it's like, that's the power of it. It's like, in that movie, the character is like, you know, he was an educated guy, wanted to live a simple life, and then they just messed with the wrong guy. And he's like, oh no, hell no, like, I'm gonna start a freaking war. Like, you know, you can't mess with my wife. And then he just, the fact that, like, that's all that people needed. They just needed somebody to make the first move and to lead them through that and lead them to freedom. And I think that's kind of what your personality really relates to, that character, is just having the courage to taking the first step and leading the move. Because there's so many people during that, including myself, that were like, you know, just going through life. And like, I was upset that, like, why wouldn't they let us go to church? But then I'm like, why are our bishops just sitting around and like accepting this? And it's kind of like, I kind of just deflected like the blame. It's like them and the priests were just going along with what their bishop said. So I guess, what was it that you feel was like, guess your personality temperament? Were you always like this, even as a child, this temperament, or did it just get more cultivated through this journey?
I don't think I was always like this. My mom kind of says I was, but I don't recall any times where I like really stood for my principles. Like, maybe a few times here and there. One time when I was in college, I went to the University of Scranton, a Jesuit college. You know, you think you're going to a Catholic school and they're not going to try to destroy your faith. But in freshman year, Theology 1, which is a mandatory class, the class is packed because it's a mandatory class, like 35 college students all sitting around at 9 a.m. on a Monday morning. And here walks in this Protestant who's supposed to be teaching basics of the Bible. And he spends like a good amount of time undermining Catholic faith.
Does the guy know where he works? That's terrible.
I know. He even used to say things like, oh, close the windows so the Jesuits don't hear. He used to say stuff like that. And I remember one time he basically put me on trial in front of all of my peers about my beliefs on abortion. I'm like, this is fundamental to Christianity.
So he was pro-abortion? Was he pro-abortion, this guy, or he was
yeah,
but because I know you were in a different place.
Not without any
exceptions.
So
he was kind
all
of
about the exceptions. Yeah, he was.
Okay, gotcha.
And I was saying, well, no, there's no exceptions. And he made me like defend my position in front of everybody. I'm a new college student, and I remember running to my philosophy professor's room afterwards, and he was a Jesuit, and I kind of was, and he was also my confessor, and I was kind of like crying to him and telling him what had happened, and he was like, oh, let's do something about it. So we actually teamed up with a few other students, and we actually got this guy fired. So like I look back and
That's
I'm
awesome.
like, okay, maybe
that was kind of the beginning,
something in there, but I can't really think, I didn't know that it was in me. And I really feel like it was a mission. And I don't actually think that this is like the realm and like the job of women and mothers. Like, I actually think this is a place where men were supposed to step up, and they really failed, especially with the COVID stuff, because you saw like the loudest voices online were almost always women. They were like stay-at-home moms, and maybe you could say they had nothing to lose, but I did. I had a career in the military that I sacrificed in order to tell the truth and to fight for the right things. So anyway, I got my first black mark in the military after taking down this caution tape. And at that point, I'm already like, I'm done, because, we're masking in the military. There's rumors now about a mandatory vaccine, and it's going to roll out in the military first. So I decide I'm going to resign my commission. And I tried to get it expedited because I started getting like recruitment at the higher levels of state conservative politics. And I was heavily involved in the Reopen and See movement, which I was the third in charge of that organization. And they had, 81,000 like Facebook people in the Facebook group, and they were the largest and first Reopen movement in the country. So biggest protests, most arrests, all of that. And I was very inspired by all of it. And the position that I took, that I now take in every area of my life, not really realizing how much of a spiritual battle it is as much as it is a physical battle. That I learned later. But the position that I took is that not 1 inch. You don't give the devil 1 inch. You don't give a tyrant 1 inch. You don't give evil 1 inch, because they always take a mile. So when I had my court date for taking down the caution tape, they wanted to take my temperature and make me wear a mask to go enter my non-guilty pleading. And I wouldn't do it. They were trying to hold me.
What if I have COVID? Are you going to not accept my guilty? What are they going to do? Like, oh, sorry, I can't do this today. That's crazy.
I'm like, I'm not going to let just some fat sheriff like hold this gun up to my head, which, by the way, that's all propaganda too. That's all like part of the conditioning, is just like putting this laser gun to your head. And like, they don't ask for permission. They just come up to your head and like, just let me take the temperature,
Yeah, true.
And like, that's my personal information. You're not entitled to it. And I have the right to due process. So I'm allowed to go in here, and I am going to enter my not guilty plea, and there's nothing you're going to do to stop me. Well, they did stop me. I go live outside of the courthouse. I'm like, they're not letting me in. So I guess they're like not allowing me my constitutional rights of due process. Like I said, the district attorney didn't want any more of this nonsense. Didn't want to deal with like the mess that I was going to be making in the media for her. So they did drop the charges, but that didn't matter in the military. Like I said, I got a, what's called a GOMAR, a General Officer Memorandum of Reprimand, which not to go down the rabbit hole and try to like confuse the audience, but there's the UCMJ process, which is the Uniform Code of Military Justice, which is its own separate court system inside the U.S. military. In all the branches of the military has this. And there's an extrajudicial thing that they do if they just don't like what you did, but you didn't technically break any rules. Like if they don't like your face, they can give you the GOMAR, the General Officer Memorandum of Reprimand. So I had a 2-star general issue this, thing in my file saying basically taking down the caution tape was conduct unbecoming. And I made him like give this, thing to my face. And I said, I think on the contrary, I think every officer who has taken an oath to the Constitution should be doing things like this. And like the fact that in the military, it was so stringently without even questioning the ethicalness of the orders that we were receiving from on high, whether that was masking or the vaccine. Like, I think that's exactly what's wrong with the U.S. military, which kind of led into my my documentary that I did with Tucker Carlson, which happened only a few months later, because I submitted my resignation from the military in November of 2020, after 10 years, and they did not, because of COVID, they were all backed up. So they couldn't process my resignation, even though I went through the expedition process to like say, hey, I need to get out. I need to get out fast. I'm just going to keep being a thorn in your side, and I'm just going to keep getting in trouble. And you actually can't get out of the military. They won't process your resignation if you have an active investigation against you. And from Memorial Day until November, I had an active investigation against me, which they lifted. And then the same day I processed my resignation. I said, hey, listen, you need to expedite this, because this is a mutual breakup. You don't want me, I don't want you, let's go.
Like, I'm trying to make it easy for you guys. Like, just accept this.
No. So
my gosh.
I wish they had, because then you had the stolen election of 2020, right? So I attended 3 rallies in DC. The November rally, the December rally, and then the January 6th rally, all 3 in a row. Now I'm like 6.5 hours away from DC. This isn't like an easy little trip for me. The first trip I went with my then boyfriend and our son. That was on November, and it was so much fun. It was so uplifting. Like, everyone's just pro freedom and election and promoting election integrity. Now we saw a lot of like Antifa, doing their black bloc and like intimidating people. And it was during that November rally that you had all of those Republicans, MAGA hat wearing people getting attacked in the streets after dark. I don't know if you recall, like, there was like an old man that went viral, and like a woman with a stroller that got attacked by multiple Antifa members. And you can find all of this online.
Yeah.
But even though there was like a safety concern, there is safety in numbers, and there's safety when you have awareness, and if you definitely like stay out of certain areas, and if you get out of there before dark. So I'm like, I want everybody in my group, my 2,000 people that I lead, that we do all of these events, we do monthly meetups still. We're still like very active in the community. I want them to experience this rally and be a part of, American history, where we're fighting for election integrity, when this was such a clear theft and such a clear example of a stolen and fake election. I mean, I had an election watch party that night, watched the whole thing, stayed up the whole night, and watched them pause it, watched the numbers change with my own eyes. And we're all just sitting there. I had like 50 people at my house, and we're just like, what the hell just happened?
Yeah. I literally went to bed because I'm like, he's going to win. So I was like, I'm an early bird.
Everybody in the
I was like, I don't need to worry about this. Just go to bed. And then wake up and I'm like, what just happened? Like, so it's crazy. And you saw the number switch.
Yeah. And I would say at that point, I was like a moderately large Trump fan. Like, for my baby moon, when Eli was being born, I like took myself to Charlotte to go and stayed in a hotel, and like went to go see see Trump's talk during one of his campaign rallies in like the big Coliseum in Charlotte. Now, I know way bigger Trump fans, or I knew way bigger Trump fans, so I wouldn't have called myself like a trumpet or whatever they used to call themselves, or be called by the left. I think they kind of embraced the moniker of trumpet after a while. But I was still of the mindset at the time that you have to accept the good with the bad. I kind of blinded myself to his red flags. And I said, like, he's promising all the right things, and let's, give him a chance and all of that. And so when the election was stolen, I was like, this is history in the making. Like, we need to do something about it. So anyway, I remember I was at the range. Me and my ex were always like, shooting guns, basically.
Yeah, I love that.
We're big 2A people. When he was a Green Beret and I was a
Yeah.
PSYOP officer. So we were at the range. Our son was there. We were actually teaching one of my friends to shoot. And I'm like, you know what? What if I just chartered a bus and we brought as many people with us as we could next time? And he was like, okay, like, let's do it. And so I did that. Like, I got back into the truck and like started calling like charter buses. And so I booked one, and I just started selling the seats at cost. So I just divided it up, and I said, I'll be your tour guide. I'm very comfortable with DC. I have to go there for work a lot. And I've been there tons of times, and I was just there in November, and I know how the rally is going to be run. I can show you where the bathroom is. I can show you where to stay away. And a lot of people from my area are just, they're kind of live in the country in North Carolina. They don't go to DC that much. And I just wanted to give a lot of people the opportunity to do what we did.
That's awesome.
And so we went. It was really fun. No issues at all. Everything went according to plan, came back. Well, for the January rally, that's, Trump was like, everybody come, right? and so I started getting like hit from all sides. We want more buses. Like, let's do, like, we didn't get to go to one in November. Book more buses. So I'm like,
wow.
Okay.
Now you're in the tour guide business.
So now I'm in the tour guide business. I booked 2 buses this time. I could have filled 5 more buses just from my county with the number of people that wanted to go there. So now I've got 100 people. They've all paid like $60, $70 to just get on this bus. And so we go. I think it's a Wednesday. I took leave from work. I told my bosses exactly where I was going. My ex couldn't go because he couldn't get off of work. And, he was like, wish I could be there. I have all these text messages, and he was like so proud and he helped me create, like, pull off the logistics of it, because he's an Army officer as well. And we kind of have the same way of planning. So we get up there, and, the rally doesn't go exactly like we thought it would, but I have a very different experience of the day of January 6th than everything I saw on TV after that. And I mean, I could probably do a whole podcast just on the things I saw and the things I heard at January 6th. And I talked to Tucker Carlson's crew for, 5 hours and talked to him in studio also about what I saw and I heard. But, you only get like maybe 5 or 6 minutes of what you said is actually put into the documentary, or actually is like aired online or aired live. We only had maybe 10-minute interview. Yeah. So there is so much to talk about. But it's very clear, like in hindsight, putting the pieces together, that there was some kind of coordinated effort. I don't believe it was from any of the people that are Trump supporters. Like,
so when you say coordinated effort, do you feel that it was coordinated on the sense of the government side, that they were kind of creating a situation where it would look a certain way in the media? Is that what you're kind of saying?
I think we're dealing with basically the deep state, which, you have all different agencies involved in that. But then also like teaming up with basically their brute hit squad, which is Antifa. So we infiltrated Antifa's, my group, people from my group infiltrated Antifa's WhatsApp group. And for the November and the December rally, they were very, very present both times, both times wearing black bloc, balaclavas, like everything, how you've seen them look.
Yeah.
For the January 6th rally, they put that they were going to dress like us. They told all their people to dress like us. And so we knew that going into it. So I'm like, my head's on a swivel, like, because
you're thinking something's going to happen.
I'm thinking Boston Marathon. That's my thought. So I actually outfitted. So I split all the 100 people into 10 groups of 10. And I had like somebody who had been to DC before be like the squad leader.
Mm-hmm.
I ran this like a military op because I only that's how
That's
I
your
plan.
experience. That's great.
And that's how I think. So I actually
Yeah.
outfitted those team leaders with like radios and a trauma kit, because in the military you pick up a lot of gear over time.
Mm-hmm.
Just, especially in special operations where they give you 10 times the gear that you get in like the random, rank and file,
Yeah.
standard military. So between me and my Green Beret boyfriend he was in the Army for 16 years. I'd been in for 10. We had like plenty to go around of like tourniquets and quick clot and bandages. And I'm just like, don't freak people out and tell people, but just carry it with you in your backpack. And then I kind of taught them how to use it and said, hey, this is my fear that something like that will happen, because they're saying right now that they're going to be infiltrating and moving amongst us. And there was so many people there that day. And I just was like, I didn't enjoy even 1 second of it, because I was constantly scanning for threats, trying to keep in touch with the squad leaders, because we didn't have any cell phone communication. So that's another indication that lets you know that the average person couldn't pull this off, because they had to, in order to do what they did, whoever they are, we know that FBI elements were involved. We know that we've never gotten quite to the bottom of what happened on January 6th, but I'm completely sure that Antifa was also involved. And there was a lot of other strange things that happened that day that, like
So
I
when you
said,
say there's no cell phone communication, was the cell phone towers not working, or what do you mean by that?
No, the government, you can put blocks on geographic areas.
Okay.
We do it in the military before an operation. We will shut down cell phone communication before we go in, so that the enemy can't communicate with each other.
Right.
Well, there would be no way for like MAGA people to have coordinated.
Yeah, like a civilian can't.
No.
Yeah. So you're saying the cell phones, like you couldn't reach your other people because there
You
wasn't.
could not get a call in or out. We were getting like through the crowd, somebody had heard that somebody had gotten shot. And then we saw somebody getting like kind of carried out. Like I was on the Capitol grounds. I posted a lot of pictures on social media and videos about how close I got. I don't know if I would have gone in or not, but I know that I watched security guards or the Capitol Police completely standing there fine with us being where we were. They didn't try to stop us. They didn't tell us, actually, you can't be here. Your permit for your rally ends at this line. If there were barriers, they were moved way before I ever showed up. Like we never saw where there was like a line. That's the thing people don't understand. Like they're like, everybody that's there had to have known that there was some kind of imaginary line that they were not supposed to cross. And technically there was a permit in place for the rally, and there was a line that beyond that you didn't have a permit to be, but none of us knew that. So anyway, and I saw a lot of different shady characters doing shady things, but they didn't look like us. I'm in the freedom movement, right? Like my friends are Trump supporting, freedom loving, conservative Christians, basically every one of them, at this point. And I've been working in this space now for basically a whole year, nonstop, like living and breathing this community. And you'd have these like people coming by, like looking like they just wear a red hat, but then they're wearing like all riot gear. And then one guy like went on a megaphone and was like, Team 6 to Station 2. And we're like, what? You're like, who are you? And so
it's like there's some coordination that everybody's out of the loop on, but they know what they're doing.
There was some nefarious element that I will die on the hill had nothing to do with people like me and people like the people I've been with for the last year. So anyway, and there was, like I said, coordination that was not possible given our lack of comms and lack of know-how. So anyway, we all leave feeling really strange. Actually, we prayed on the Capitol grounds before we left. We're like, we don't really know what just happened, but we clearly need to pray for our country right now. So we did. And then we took the long bus ride home. A couple days later, the Attorney General of North Carolina, who is now the governor of North Carolina, Josh Stein, gets onto his social media on his Facebook and asks North Carolinians to report on each other anyone who was at the rally. Not somebody that there was like proof of bad behavior. I mean, the only crime I saw that day was like public urination, because they removed the porta-johns. Like the last two rallies, there was porta-johns. Yeah. And then like for January 6th, there was none. So like you saw like dudes peeing on trees and like on the side of a wall. And I was like,
it's like you see that going down in New York City. That's not
that's
pretty common in some areas.
Now, I'm not trying to deny that there was somebody trying to break windows.
You just personally said that's the most.
I personally did not see that because I wasn't that close, but also I am very skeptical that it was, people of my ilk, doing that. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Josh Stein, the snake, he's now the governor of the state that I am in. He gets on and just like does a full on report on your neighbors for going to a rally. And I'm looking in the comments and I'm like, this is just full on Stasi behavior. There's hundreds of comments. Susie Ann moonlights and is a bus driver for this school district. And she drove her church group down to the rally. And there was a lot of church groups there. It was like a big church group thing, like all of January 6th.
That's crazy.
A big church group thing. That's another element that I have not heard anywhere, is how many church groups there were. Anyway, so it was sickening to me. I was like sick to my stomach watching all of my fellow North Carolinians reporting on each other, not saying that somebody did something wrong, just that they were there. Now, keep in mind, he's the Attorney General. He is like in charge of the State Bureau of Investigation. He can sic law enforcement on these people, right? And people are tagging, naming names, giving addresses, doxing people. It's insane. And
that's like something I would see in communist China. It's like this idea of like, let's just report on everybody and turn against your neighbor. That's what that sounds like to me. At least like encouraging that behavior is disturbing from an American.
So you're truly
Attorney General. Yeah.
Being who I am.
Yeah. So how many people tagged you?
I know. I went and reported my damn self.
You're like, I'll just help you guys out.
This is my address. This is where I work. And I personally brought 100 people. Like, stop being a Nazi.
That's awesome. When you do things like that, what are you feeling like at that point? Is there any hesitancy to the repercussions of just announcing yourself at that point? Or you just know your rights and you're going to stick to them?
I think there was if I'm honest, and you're the first person to ask me that, but if I'm honest, I think there was like a naivete about all of it. Like I really didn't understand that our rights don't actually exist. And the best thing you can do is keep your head down. And if you stick your neck out, you can lose everything, not just your freedom and not just your career, but your child, which, we will come to that.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is where we're at now. And so there are a lot of people have said, well, do you feel like you've learned some kind of lesson? And I'm like, no, because as Catholics, we know that everything we do for truth, we do for God, and everything we do for justice, we do for God. And because he is, the personification of those two words, truth and justice, all goodness and truth and justice all come from him. So when you fight for those things, you're doing it for God. And the martyrs lost everything. And we grew up with the stories of the martyrs, people losing their children. I mean, I always think about the Maccabean mother who lost I can't even remember if it was like 7 or 12 sons in a row because they wouldn't pinch incense, right? So she's literally watching and sending one son after the next, after the next, after the next to be killed, who refuses. No, it's not pinching incense. It was like eating pork, I think, but it was like the equivalent of, just do this one little thing and I've already told you at this point, I have this, we're not giving an inch, not 1 inch. I'm not going to bend the knee at all to anything but
Yes.
the
Yeah.
supreme authority of God and his holy church when they are acting in their legitimate and just authority. Right.
Yeah.
So I maintain that every bit of it was worth it, but I'm not gonna feel that like in this life. Like, you know, having your child taken from you is a kind of death. I would rather go to prison than, I mean, other than the fact that you're separated from your children and go to prison. Anything they could do to me pales in comparison. And so that's what's at stake. And everything that can be lost temporally, like in this world, I have for the truth. And I have to believe that it's worth it. And I have to believe that I've stored up treasure, or at the very, very least, decreased my time in purgatory for all of my many sins and the ones I continue to do, sadly. So anyway, yeah, I mean,
You've put your neck out on the line, and that's what we can just get into it, is you lost custody of your son because of standing up for the truth. And a lot of people, this is why they're so afraid, because of what happens. Like, people are so afraid to stand up for the truth. And yes, maybe you were naive. I don't think I mean, that was probably a blessing in a way, because like the beauty of being young, and not that you were young in the sense, but just the beauty of naivety in that way is that you're just like, you're fighting for the truth, and you're not really thinking about the consequences, but it gives you this freedom just to fight, And so, I don't know if naives, you probably feel that way, but,
I never saw what has
yeah.
happened coming. And, at the time I had I had a support structure, like I'm the oldest of 7. Now, none of my siblings agreed with like any of this. They've left the church for the most part, and most of them have not come back because they haven't found tradition like I was, given the unmerited gift of finding, because I certainly wouldn't be a Catholic if I hadn't found the mass of all time and the faith of all time.
Yeah.
But my parents were in my corner. My son's father was in my corner, telling me he was proud of me. Always saying, like, don't worry, if you lose your job or whatever, like, I've got us, and we were still like hoping to get to the point where we could be married someday and like have a family. And we had dreams, about, we bought a little homestead. And at the time that all this is happening, in the background, I am battling his demons. And I had a lot of compassion for, his demons, because they were based in the traumas of his childhood and the traumas that he's experienced in warfare, and the damage that did to his mental health. And so I was dealing with somebody who was mentally unwell and suicidal the whole time in the background. But when he was good, and he had good days, he was such like a supportive rock. And so I was surrounded by a circle of people that was, holding me up and encouraging me the whole time. So I ended up getting under investigation again in the military for January 6th, because when I reported myself to Josh Stein, as far as I know, the State Bureau of Investigation didn't come after me, but the Associated Press, which is the biggest conglomeration of media in the entire
Sometimes
world,
worse. Yeah.
a reporter for them saw my comment, started digging, and ended up doing a story on me being a active duty special operations psychological operations officer. Think about it. Like, everybody's like thinking that there was some kind of weird, if you remember at the beginning of 2021 when they were like talking about, oh, there was mind control happening to people and that's why they rioted. There was all sorts of crazy things being thrown out there, but nobody was willing to question the narrative. Everyone was just calling it a riot. Remember, you had Biden coming out with his big red speech where he had his Marines in the background and it looked like something off of like Darth Vader's Star Wars, you know, and he was like threatening to like track down every single one of the rioters and throw them and give them the justice they deserved, and that this is the worst thing that's ever happened in the history of our country. All of that stuff, all that rhetoric was flying around. I get put under investigation again, but this time it's not for conduct unbecoming of an officer. I get put under investigation for sedition, domestic terrorism. Like, these are the actual words being put, and it was just because I was there, and the media did a hit piece on me. So they're
trying to make an example of you.
I'm internationally infamous now because the Associated Press has decided to make me the face of the riot, right? And very quickly, like, my life changed, in every way after that, because if you Google my name, you will find 20 pages of articles. The Jewish Journal called me the architect of January 6th. And trust me, I tried. I reached out to a lot of different like nonprofits, freedom nonprofits, trying to sue for slander and libel. And basically the only thing that happened was like these outlets that printed things that they could actually be sued for, they just retracted it in small print. And that was enough. That's enough to get you off in this country for like
crazy,
completely lying. I mean, I think about, what is that kid that had his life ruined, but then he ended up winning a lawsuit for
the one that he was doing self-defense. Are you talking about the one with thinking of a different one?
It was like the Native American man got up in his face and he was like,
yeah, and then he was a high school kid too, right?
Yes, yeah.
I mean,
his life.
Yeah, but he ended up it ended up working out for him. I think he got like some scholarships or something. I forgot what
he made millions actually, because
it was like the worst thing and the best thing in the same moment. It was like,
so I'm in a unique position at this point because I belong underneath the Uniform Code of Military Justice, and so the FBI left me alone because the military was investigating me, and the military was like, let us handle it, right? So they cleared me of everything for obvious reasons because they knew I was going there. Literally, I put my lead form in. I'm like, I'm going to this rally. I wasn't in uniform. I didn't break any regulations whatsoever, and didn't break any laws. And everybody that I brought with me came back as peacefully to North Carolina as we went up there. And which is the vast, vast, vast majority of like the million people that were there. It's such crap when they're like, oh, there's 100,000 people there. Oh, I've been to some rallies. I'll tell you, there was not 100,000.
I can say that even when you just look at some of the aerial footage, I'm like, there's no way unless they're hiding in the bushes. Like, I don't know how that's possible.
Hiding in a way. It was so cool that day. That's another thing no one talks about. Like, people were literally leaving because before Trump even spoke, because it was so cold. One of my conspiracy theories is that they purposely made it so that the weather prediction was wrong because none of us were dressed for -6 wind chill. So
yeah, I also wonder, this is like a side thought, but I've been wondering for years, and maybe you have some insight to it. I was watching that rally about to start, and I wasn't there, but I was watching on TV. And I remember thinking, they had all the pre-shows and then Trump was supposed to come on and he was like massively late, which I thought was weird. And maybe he had something that like he had to do and came up, blah, blah, blah. But he was late. But then the car got there and it was parked there for, I don't know, 10 minutes or 15 minutes before he even got out. And I just remember thinking that's odd. It was like, in hindsight, I kind of wonder that, was it not, and not that, I guess I just wonder why was it that it was like we're trying to hold off on starting this thing. And I think that Trump was in on the January 6th, like, what ended up happening. I don't think he was in on the conspiracy of the, I guess, I don't know if you know what I'm saying with this, but do you have any thoughts on why he just kind of sat in his car for a little bit out of curiosity, or was it just is that just how it went?
I am no longer a Trump supporter. So
yeah, I think a lot of us are feeling that way.
I came out publicly. I did not vote for him this time around, but I came out publicly a year ago, just about exactly a year ago, saying that I'm not going to be voting for him, and these are the reasons why you should not vote for him. And what really woke me up, and I don't know why it was this issue, and I don't know why it took me so long, because there was a lot of people who realized it a lot sooner than I did, but I was, don't want to know, like, he's our best shot, well, all of that. Was the IVF issue. When he came out and said that he was going to make it free, I was like, it was just as clear to me as it was, like, that he was not one of us, as the day I realized that the 2 weeks to slow the spread was propaganda. It was just, I don't know where, I mean, it feels almost inspired how much it was just like a lightning bolt. Holy crap. Yeah. Scales fall from my eyes, and I'm immediately like, I don't care what I've been telling you for, since 2020. You need to listen to me now. Do not vote for him. Anyway. So,
yeah, I think it's that plus the whole thing with the Epstein stuff, and now we're going down a rabbit hole. But it's just, there's a lot of stuff that I'm like, man, what, like, why are you like to say, why are we still interested in the Epstein files? Like, to gaslight the entire country. It's like, well, there's a lot of victims there that you were going to stand up for. And now you're just looking the other way. It's like, that's weird.
And his just ridiculous rampant levels of Zionism and the Israel first issue is just, it's too much to stomach now. And I can kind of see now that he was just a Trojan horse in the, the forever plan of the Freemasons, which they do the same exact thing everywhere. And that's, they have they present the problem, and then the counter, and then the solution. So it's, they're controlling both sides of the issue. And I think Trump is just a Trojan horse. And I think we all fell for it. And now we have, homosexual sodomitical marriage enshrined into our conservative Christian platform as a party. I don't consider myself a Republican. I guess I still am registered as one, but I think that is a completely infiltrated party. I think the two-party system is completely broken at this point. And just to get to the point, I wrote in Christ the King for this presidential election, and I have like a lot of content on my social media, mostly Instagram, and my handle is my name, if anybody wants to follow me there. But
please do. She's awesome.
But I have some podcasts that I did that like explain with the reasoning, Catholic theology, like why we cannot vote for the lesser of two evils, and why that is a Luciferian trick that we have to wake up from, because we're done with that. That is using the rationale of atheism. We're not thinking and reasoning like followers of Christ when we do that.
Yeah, for sure.
So, okay, where are we in this?
So you were January 6th happened. And
so I finally get cleared.
Yeah.
I finally get cleared of all these charges. But in that entire time that I was under investigation, from basically January 13th until summer of 2021, they put me under a gag order. So after they cleared me of all of these like heinous accusations against me, I said, okay, well, now the investigation's over. You've cleared me. I want to do a press conference. And every single person that was on the bus with me that day agreed to like sit in bleachers behind me. And I was going to get the most I was going to get Megyn Kelly or like anybody, you know, I really had my pick of the litter. Everybody wanted to interview me. And they told me no, that I wasn't allowed to clear my name. And what they're hanging over my head is my honorable discharge. Now, if you have a dishonorable or an other than honorable discharge from the military, your whole life is ruined. Like all of your military benefits, the majority of them as a veteran, you don't have anymore. Like you might not even be able to own a gun at that point. People don't understand how like an honor, those are reserved. That's reserved for like murderers and like serial rapists. And they're, you know, and they're dangling that like, okay, like don't say anything or, you know, you won't get your honorable. And I didn't really understand why until there was, if you recall, there was a 60-day stand down in the military across all branches of the military where they were going to address the extremist problem, the right-wing extremism problem that doesn't exist, by the way, in the military. So that is what, and then they use me as an example, the chief vignette in this like mandatory training that every single like person in the military, which is 1.2 million service members, all receive a training. Like my face comes up on the screen of the PowerPoint and is like, don't be like this girl. And I literally just got cleared of all charges. All I did was go to January 6th. So this is the subject of the Patriot Purge documentary that Tucker Carlson did while he was still with Fox News. You can still find it on Fox News, on Fox Nation.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm kind of like one of the figures in that 3-part documentary. So, and it just talks about how in the institutions in America, conservatives are being purged out, and it's for nefarious reasons, but a lot of conservatives have left the military and have since come back, but we can talk about that later. During this time, I mean, I remember I had friends who had like NRA stickers on the back of their trucks and they wouldn't scratch them off because they didn't want to be identified as like an extremist or be reported by one of their coworkers who was, you know, probably a DEI hire anyway, in like the big social experiment that is the US military, underneath like Obama and Biden.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's a really dark time. I get out. I finally, because of course once they've lifted the investigation, I can finally get out of the military. So it's July. I finally am out of the military. The very next day, Tucker Carlson's film crew, because I'm under a gag order until I'm out, right? So as soon as I signed out and I was done, Tucker Carlson's film crew came in and we, you know, filmed all day. And then I ended up doing his live show, went down to his Florida studio, met him and did that there later.
Yeah.
Well,
what's that like to go from just a local activist to now you're in the spotlight?
It was a whirlwind. I can tell you that like no one is prepared for, you know, for that. And when you are in the middle of that media storm, it feels like, especially if it's the first time that it's happened. And for me, that was the first time it went, you know, maybe I got a little statewide, you know, news and local news for the caution tape thing. And then it went international, and I'm like public enemy #1 on the biggest story of the decade, you know?
Seriously. Yeah.
And so
what was the hate you got? Like, how did that affect your daily life? Like, were people finding your personal number? Yeah. Like what was the harassment like that you were like, when you walked down the street, did you get like, what was it, I guess, your daily life like with that?
Well, you know, I still had to go to work at that time. Like this is January but like my chain of command told me to stop wearing the uniform because it has my name on it.
Wow.
You know, so like I was able to be like more incognito driving around. You know, if I needed to run and get some lunch on base somewhere, I didn't want to have my name out. But yeah, I mean, I pretty much stayed to myself for the better part of 6 months. That's hard. Both my parents were in the military. They're both West Point graduates, and they were both advising me, you know, don't risk your honorable discharge. I now regret these things. I wish I had just said, you know, go ahead, throw me in jail if you want for breaking this gag order. like, I know what you're doing. You're trying to use me as an example, and I'm not going to let you be the ones to tell my story. I'm going to tell it. And I'm going to blow the whistle on everything that's happening here. I'm going to tell the truth about January 6th and everything that I saw. And I'm going to tell the truth about the Patriot Purge in the military and the way that Biden is like going to be using like his commander in chief status to like push conservatives out of the military.
Yeah.
And
your ex at this time, is he still like all on board and
all
supporting
on board,
you?
All on board. In fact,
crazy how that changes.
On the anniversary of January 6th, so that would have been January 6th, 2022, I have a text that I, entered in evidence in court where he's just like, here's the anniversary. I'm so proud of you for everything you've done, everything that you've done. I don't have the exact verbiage of what he said, but
yeah,
it's still in my corner. I throw myself wholeheartedly. I told you we bought a little homestead. I throw myself wholeheartedly into being a stay-at-home mom. I started homeschooling Eli with the help of my mom, who homeschooled all 7 of us, like to a point, in and out of school and homeschooling. And I was, I'm a Army brat, suburbs chick, and I'd never done anything farming in my life. And so I just spent basically, the next year of my life, like getting this little homestead business up and running. I named it Vendée Farms, Vendée in honor of the counter-revolutionaries of the French Revolution, 300,000 Catholics who were massacred by the French army for standing for the monarchy and standing for altar and throne and refusing to go along with the shutting down of their churches and their masses.
That's amazing.
Which were similarly in the French Revolution. Little history lesson. They did what they are now doing in China, where the state forced the clergy to take like special oaths, and they were only allowed to talk about certain things. Like in communist China, like they have to put communist principles into their homilies, and they aren't allowed to say certain things, and they have to take oaths in support of the government. And the same thing happened in the French Revolution, and there were a lot of French priests that did not go along with it, and they were martyred. And so 300,000 of peasants that lived in the Vendée region of France were also massacred, but not without fighting first. So I named my homestead Vendée Farms after the Vendéans.
I love that.
And it's a really good, really, really good book called For Altar and Throne by Michael Davies that I like highly recommend. It's like a little thing.
What is it? Say it again.
It's called For Altar and Throne. And it's about this big.
Throne.
I give it out as gifts. I bought 500 copies and I give it out to everybody. Like some people have gotten more than one copy because I can't keep straight who I give it to. But it's like everybody gets one for Christmas. Like, I don't care if you're a Catholic or not, you're getting one. Give it to strangers. So I'm still running my freedom group. We're not fighting against the lockdowns, but we are fighting against the vaccine, especially trying to spread the truth about the vaccine that's now come down. September 1st of 2021, which is the same year that I got out of the military, they instituted the mandate in the military. So I'm now helping service members like all over the country get their exemptions, teaching them what to do, encouraging them and standing strong against the vaccine, connecting them with bigger media outlets. And like, I'm just on the phone all the time, like working in the background, fighting for these soldiers who are just getting completely abused by the chain of command. And over 8,000 families were kicked out of the military for refusing the vaccine. And
it's so evil. It's just like, these are people that, just they're family people. It's not like they have money to just lose and jobs to just, and that is so sad that they had to choose between getting something in their body that they didn't feel comfortable with. And
I've never met a single person, not one person, that has regretted it. And
regretted,
regretted not getting it.
Yeah,
regretted not getting it. And even if they did lose everything, which a lot of them did, and some of them lost their honorable discharge over it. Not a few, not just a few, were actually other than honorable discharges, which, like I said, it makes it so that you can't even get jobs later.
Yeah.
So now I'm sitting pretty
It's
with
so
my honorable
evil.
discharge. Yeah, and another thing that they
Yeah,
did to me
yeah.
on my way out, they did give me my honorable discharge, but they denied me a commission in the reserves. So I was going to continue like as a reservist so that I could get to my 20. I just put 10 years, and you get retirement at 20. And I was just going to like be that weekend warrior for. I've never even heard of somebody getting denied in the reserves. They take everyone for the reserves, but not me, because like I'm persona non grata. You know, I'm public enemy number one to the Biden administration, and and they also took my top secret clearance, which you are authorized to keep after you leave the military because it does help you get jobs in the future. Now at this point, I'm like, I'm never working for the government again. I do not.
Like, keep it.
You think I care? You know, you take your. You know, you think I care? I don't want these things anyway. So I'm doing the homesteading thing, doing the Venday Farms homesteading business, trying to get that going off the ground while learning how to do things as I go. And my now ex, he lives on the property. This is kind of like what we worked out with our priest, is that he's on the farm, but he can't sleep in the house. So we bought a brand new like RV, and he just would sleep in that at night. We've got the hookups and all of that. And he lived like in the house. And now my parents also lived on the property. So that was like another one of the things that the priest liked, because it was like even though I was committed to my celibacy and my Catholic faith, and I'm going to Latin Mass every Sunday at this point, and raising my son in the faith, you know, having a chaperone that's like appropriate. So like my parents were there on the property working with us. They lived in a tiny home at the back of the property. Me and my son were in the house, and then my ex was in the camper. So that's like, we did this arrangement for a while.
Yeah.
And he did actually use these facts against me in the case, because like these are religious elements that like courts don't understand. You know, courts don't understand like why you wouldn't just get married, and courts don't understand why they would be living in a camper. And like he tried to say that this was like me being abusive and coercive, when this was like complete agreement, and it was under the guidance of our priest, you know. So it's in the court documents that like I was like financially controlling him by making him sleep in this camper, and that was emotionally abusive somehow. It's all ridiculous, because keep in mind, this man is 10 years my senior, and he's like he claims to be a special, you know, a Green Beret, special operations officer, but he came to court basically acting like this huge victim. And he also weighs 100 pounds more than me. 6'3". He was a former Division I quarterback. He's like, I don't know, 240 pounds. I've never weighed more than 140, except when I'm pregnant, like I am right now.
You look great. I know we're only seeing you from waist up, but it's amazing.
I'm 23 weeks right now, and I feel like I have a long way to go, but I'm already moving like a little weird. And I was shooting hoops with my husband yesterday morning, and he like did a layup, and I was like, no more layups. We were playing horse, and I was like, no more layups, because it feels weird to run with the basketball. I played college basketball, but I was just like, no, we're done with that. I'll just free throws for now until the baby comes. So there was one other big thing, and I won't go into the details because that will take a long time. But if anyone is interested, you can go into like the link in my bio, and I have a bunch of podcasts and interviews that I did about this next event that got me into the media. And it basically, I organized a protest against a all ages drag show happening in my hometown. Okay. The reason why that made national news, and this is like the second time I made national news, and this is also key in my custody battle, because I will read to you and I will give you things that you can show your audience about how my ex used this against me to take custody. So the reason why it was a big deal is because on the night of the drag show, we ended up having a few wins. We actually were able to get the age raised to 18.
That's great,
because we pressured the sponsors, and we were calling the city, and we were trying to get the diocese involved because the Diocese of Raleigh owned a church within 300 feet of the location. And there's a North Carolina statute on the, was it 300 feet or 1,000 feet? I can't remember now. Because this is in the fall of late November of 2022. Do I have that right? Yes, I do. I think. No, 2021. Yeah, my years do get mixed up. And so you're not allowed to have any adult entertainment within that amount of distance between a church or school. So if the diocese had just pressed their legal advantage, and said, hey, we don't want this to happen, it would never have happened in the first place. But that same night, there was an attack on the power grid of Moore County, North Carolina. And this made national news because there were 3 substations that were nearly simultaneously hit with gunfire, and it knocked out power for 100,000 people for 10 days. Now, that's a long time for that many people to not have power. I mean, think about Hurricane Helene.
Yeah, it can get dangerous.
It can. Yeah, it can. And obviously, like in the lead up to Christmas, there were millions of dollars of revenue and shopping and things like that. And restaurants had to restaurants were literally just having barbecues in the street, cooking the food because it was all going bad. They were just giving free food out to anybody that could actually make it there because nobody could fill their cars up with gas because there was no electricity to pump the gas. Now, granted, if they just left the county in any direction, there's 5 counties that border Moore County, North Carolina, you'd be fine. And that's what a lot of people did. And actually, I lived a mile over the county line out of Moore County into Lee County. That's where my farm was. And so my farm didn't get hit. Well, I was framed for this attack. Why? Just because the liberal media decided that I was a good candidate, and I was leading a protest, an anti-LGBT protest, the same exact night. The drag show itself was shut down due to the outage. So they were in there doing their gay dancing.
Yeah.
And then they had to leave because it was actually a fire hazard for them to stay there in this old historic theater in the downtown of our, sleepy little conservative town. Yeah. They all bust in from Raleigh, and so did half the people in the stands, because it was very well publicized that there was this battle royale happening between the conservatives and Christians in Moore County, and the Elemental P Rainbow Mob. So anyway, we did this protest, and then we prayed the rosary. And I remember just standing there with my, 5 or 6 fellow Catholics, because its vast majority is evangelical, right? And I remember we just prayed. I said, God, we did everything that we could to shut this protest down. You're going to have to take it from here. We've done everything in our human capacity, including putting miraculous medals on the building. We were doing everything.
Love that.
We were doing everything we could.
Yeah.
Now, the police presence was huge at this because they were expecting there to be some kind of something. There was
they thought you guys were going to turn violent or something.
Well, they outnumbered us 3-1 easily.
Mm-hmm.
They bust in. There were multiple buses coming in from Raleigh, busing in their supporters.
Wow.
And you can, and all of this is just easy Google. You can read the whole story. But so here I am. I'm home at this point. By the way, my ex was with me. He went to the protest with me, and I had a friend that was living with me at the time because she was kind of unhoused unexpectedly. So she was in the guest room. She came with me. She actually drove, and my ex and she drove us down there and drove us back. So all 3 of us were there. We were sitting around the dining room table telling my parents about all the crazy stuff that these demoniacs were doing on the other side of the police line, really blasphemous stuff, really perverse and disgusting things. As we were we're praying, they're just all but having an orgy on the other side, right?
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
In defiance of us. It was very demonic, very demonic. And I have a lot of videos and pictures of it. They had lots of signs with my name on it, like Emily Grace, will you marry me? And all this kind of craziness. So we are sitting around the table talking about it. And then my phone starts blowing up. All the power is out in Moore County. I'm like, what? So I tell my friend who lives right next to the theater or works right next to the theater, go take a picture of the marquee sign, the big, downtown divas sign, and send it to me. And it's just pitch black because there's no power. And you see them like coming out like boo-boo faced because they didn't get to finish their drag show. So here I am. We're in the land of the pines. There's pine trees everywhere, and pine trees fall and they break down power lines. I don't know that the entire county is without power at this point. I don't know that no one knows that there's been like actual people who shot at the substations, like attacked the grid essentially.
Yeah.
And I don't know that. I'm thinking a tree fell and their drag show got knocked down, and I'm thinking God intervened. And to this day, I stand by that. I believe
it sounds like it for sure.
Just like with the Babylonian captivity, that was a punishment from God. That was a chastisement from God. The so-called conservative Christians of Moore County, where there are almost more churches than there are, private homes in that county. And we only had 100 people, even though everybody in the county knew about it. At the end of the day, they should have run that thing. That never should have been able to happen in what was considered a conservative stronghold county in the state. And I believe that Moore County was chastised by God for allowing that to happen in their historic downtown, really landmark building that's like epitomizes the spirit of their town.
Yeah.
So I get on Facebook because me, and I say,
here we go.
I say, I just put in black with white letters, the power is out in Moore County, and I know why. Okay.
Oh, geez. So in hindsight, you're like,
well, the police were at my door within like 10 minutes, and I'm like,
you're like, no, I'm telling you, it was God.
Which is what I said to them. It's what I said to them.
My gosh.
And it's what I maintain, and it's what I said on Steve Bannon, and it's what I said in every single interview that I did after that. Like, that is the way God works. He works through good people. He works through bad people. And to this day, no one has ever been arrested and charged for this crime. The FBI was investigating for months in my county. And like, my name was just like constantly being brought up. Like, why aren't you arresting her? And they were like, she has an alibi. Like, we can track her phone. Like, we know she had nothing to do with it. But to this day, around Christmas every year, articles are written about me because they never caught these people that did this. And, my opinion is that I really do believe that it was a coordinated framing of conservative Christians to continue the culture war. I don't know if it was, a private organization or if it was the deep state, but, the FBI is really bad at investigating itself. So I don't think they're ever going to find who did it, because it just turns out that they don't want the people to be caught because it's very convenient to scapegoat a Christian conservative. And that has been my life. I got scapegoated and framed for January 6th. I got scapegoated and framed for the drag show blackout of, Armageddon, which is like what they call it every time they do articles. And then when the day came where I finally saw that it was hurting my son more to be in the relationship for me to be in the relationship with his dad and for us to be in that house with him and the struggles that things were not improving. And I do have to be careful because like, none of what I'm doing is to hurt him, even though he is an enemy. He has hurt me worse and betrayed me more than anybody ever could by using all of our beliefs that are shared. I mean, the only thing we didn't fight about was politics. He used these against me because he knew that the system was evil enough to listen and to not care about the truth and to just it was be too easy to weaponize, which is exactly what He got up there, bold-faced lied again and again. I would prove with documents that he was lying.
Yeah, I'm sure.
They'd never
Text and
cared.
everything.
Years.
I mean, he was there,
We were together. We were together for 5 years.
Yeah.
My son is then 4. And it became clear to me that things were getting worse, not better. Things had started to get physical, which they never were before. And that was my last straw. And so I asked him to take his camper and leave, and he did.
Yeah.
And we managed to co-parent. He was getting every weekend visitation, twice a day FaceTime calls with his son. Basically, anytime he wanted to see him, he could. But then there was an incident that happened when my son was doing an overnight with his dad, and then it became clear that it was a safety issue at that point. He agreed it was a safety issue, and he asked to go no contact for a few weeks.
When you say no contact, so he
doesn't want his FaceTimes. Yeah, he doesn't want any FaceTimes, and he doesn't want any
visitation. He asked not to he didn't want his son to, he didn't want that contact with his son.
Yeah,
is that right?
He wanted to try to get his head right. He wanted to go get some help. And I encouraged that. I always encouraged him to try to get help, to try to get clean, and to try to, heal some of his traumas and deal with some of his demons.
Yeah.
And he literally sued me for full custody, like very quickly after that, and said that I was alienating. But I just wanted to read a few.
He asked, so let me make sure. So he asked for no contact because he said he wanted to work on himself. And
Which I have in text message form. Right. So all of this was submitted to the court. So he claims parental alienation in his initial filing, but I then submit evidence saying he asked not to see him. And here's all my phone records to show that he was getting twice a day phone calls. And here are all the visitation. Here's the visitation log. He had every weekend, not every other weekend. He had every weekend until this one event happened. So then I submitted the recording of that phone call. Because I started recording phone calls at some point, because I was, he would get angry, and when he was not having a good mental health day, he would be threatening things like suing me. And so I was like, I have to start protecting myself. And I wish I'd done it much sooner, because I would have had a lot more evidence than I ended up having. But I wanted to give the relationship an honest chance, and so I wasn't holding on to things, So, one time he left a suicide note, and then we couldn't find him. And I had to call the counties, and I put a bolo out for his vehicle, and multiple counties, because I didn't know what county he was in. But I didn't keep that letter. I threw it out because I was still in it at that time. So I didn't have that to give to the court, I just had my testimony, and hey, I don't have phone records from that far back showing that I called 911, and they don't keep recordings at the courthouse for that long. So
it's just your word against his, even though at one point there were records. It's just
and there were plenty of things that I was able to present in evidence, but I couldn't present everything. And I think a lot of people when they're dealing with courts ever, they deal with that. But let me just read a few things that he put in his filing so that you can understand. While serving as a commissioned officer in the Army, she was active supporter in January 6th insurrection. He called it an insurrection, designed to thwart the legitimate transfer of power to the then president-elect Joseph Biden. In addition to this conduct demonstrating incredibly poor judgment, it was inconsistent with the oath she took upon being commissioned as an officer. Next point. She spoke approvingly online of the acts of domestic terrorism that occurred in Moore County during November of 2022, when the Duke Energy electric substation was rendered inoperable by gunfire, leaving thousands without power for days. Subsection 3. She is overtly and openly online anti-LGBTQ and supportive of those who threaten harm to the community. He has no proof of any of these allegations, and obviously the characterization of these things are completely outlandish. They're false on their face, but also he was supportive of the things that are true, which is that I am anti-LGBTQ, not the people, but the ideology and the behavior, right?
Yeah.
I never spoke approvingly of acts of domestic terrorism. That's nonsense. And I wasn't involved in any insurrection, so I don't know what he's talking about. So then he says she came under additional scrutiny of late when North Carolina Medical Examiner's Office declared the death of an elderly woman receiving forced oxygen at the time of the Moore County power attack as a homicide, which someone did die during that 10-day outage because she didn't have her oxygen. The defendant, having spoken favorably of the attack, is drawing great ire in the community, and the plaintiff is concerned that the hostility directed to the defendant will imperil the party's son. Zero evidence that me or my son was ever in any kind of danger. The only person we were ever in danger from, because at this point things had gotten physical at least once to the point where I had to go and stay in a hotel overnight, which I provided evidence of that to the court. Right?
Wow.
The only person I was afraid of was him.
Yeah.
Like there were keyboard warriors, like somebody using a VPN from British Columbia saying like, I hope you die, but like, that's not real. That's not actual threat.
Yeah.
To your life. No one ever showed up at my house.
Yeah. That's just internet bullying.
And then he wrote, the defendant has found a new boyfriend who has declared himself to be in charge of the defendant's household and who's working to supplant the plaintiff as Elijah's father. None of that is true. And by the way, he didn't sue me until I met my now husband. By the way, when he left my house, he immediately moved in with a girlfriend.
Wow.
Immediately.
So he obviously had this girlfriend beforehand. I
have no proof of that. But I had caught him cheating previously.
Okay.
But it just wasn't, I'm not really concerned with his vices or even his behavior that are not directly involved in the testimony that he gave in court and the pleadings that he has filed, so you get the point. I mean, this kind of goes on a little bit. And then we had, and I recognize that we're like way over time at this point. So I'll just tell you, we originally had a temporary custody hearing. Our judge in that case was a great judge, and he saw all of the evidence and awarded me primary custody with his dad receiving every other weekend. And he was also given an order not to drink, which is really a big part of all of this was alcohol. Yeah. He was ordered not to drink while he had my son. Right.
Okay. Yeah.
And we were under that order for over a year. And then I got a new judge. And the judge goes to a dispensationalist Baptist church.
Okay.
And I have yet to get to the bottom of it, but I am almost positive that her husband is Jewish. Now, her husband died between the time that she heard the cases, which was 5 days of basically rehashing all the evidence that we had already hashed before, but just in a longer form.
Okay.
Her husband died between then and the time that she issued the ruling. It took her a year. She's in her 70s. She has no children, and now she's a widow and only and my ex's Jewish lawyer, who is now disbarred in the state of North Carolina for sleeping with clients too many times. He only played. I have hundreds of videos that I have put online and posts, right, at this point, because I've been an activist for years at this point. He only played one video from start to finish. And that was the one where I talk about how Christians are God's chosen people. This was all pre-Gaza, all the talk that we're doing about the state of Israel influencing our politics and the, Israel first versus America first and all of that. And the talk about Zionism and dispensationalism and all of that. I'm always just a little bit ahead. And that's not a safe place to be, because when you're with the crowd, it's safe, but when you're a little head, it's not. So when
you recorded this video, you were ahead of the trend, but when he played the video, was it also
still ahead?
Were you ahead?
Nope,
okay.
Still ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, still ahead, because this would have been this is before October 7th. So, and then remember that the October 7th attack in Israel, it took a little bit of time before anybody started questioning, oh, wait a minute, this story doesn't really make any sense. And like the reaction to it is obviously also doesn't make sense. And like this attack doesn't justify genocide of an entire people.
Right.
So anyway, you have my now disbarred Jewish, his last name's Silverman. You can look him up. He's been disbarred in the state of North Carolina. He was working for 30 years in this county, knew everything there was to know about every judge in this county, which I'm over here. I had no idea. I laughed.
Yeah.
I'm like kind of laughing when he plays this one. I was like, wow, this, of all the things he could have picked and tried to twist as put as evidence that I'm a bad person for this custody battle, he picked this one. And I'm like, why this one? I'm like kind of laughing.
I don't even understand it either. Because I watched the video. I don't even see what the controversy is in that clip. Maybe I'm just not like in on the, but I'm just like, I don't even, I don't even know how they can say this anti-Semitic. You're just saying that, you know, like you said, you're proclaiming what everybody knows to be true in the gospel.
I didn't even say like the Jews killed Christ, which is true, but I didn't say that. All I said was Christians are the chosen people. Anybody saying that the Jews are chosen people and any Jew that didn't convert missed the boat on thousands of years of their patrimony, because Christ and the coming of the Messiah, who is Jesus, is the point of all of those thousands of years of prophets. And you missed the boat, you know? So I didn't even go so far as to say, hey, the Messiah you're waiting for is actually going to be the Antichrist, which is Catholic teaching. You know, that is what our church says. That is what the doctors of the church and the fathers of the church have all held. Wow. So this is not earth shattering. And I'm like sitting here scratching my head. I'm like, there are so many things that they could have played from start to finish. So many videos.
Yeah. You're like, I could have done better.
This one? And then later, once I got the ruling back where I was stripped of all custody, I am a stay-at-home homeschooling mother who has had primary care of this child. His dad's never taken to it, you know, like isn't responsible for his health care, not done any schooling with him. I take him to his extracurriculars. I mean, this boy has relied on me from the moment that he opened his eyes. And before that, when I was pregnant with him, right? And I'm like, it was only after the fact that I'm like, oh, it is pretty clear that he knew something about this judge and her politics and her religious beliefs as a dispensationalist, which I found out later because I know what church she goes to.
Yeah.
Because I'm from the area, right? So I found out later that it's like a very heavily dispensationalist church. Like that's their entire theology.
Gotcha.
And then, you know, I realized that this Jewish lawyer knew something about her that I didn't know. And that's why he picked that video. And she ignored all the evidence. I had unbelievable amount of documentation. My ex all just had lies and accusations. That's it. Yeah. And what I didn't realize about the process is how much power these judges have, how little they actually care, how much their bias plays in. I didn't know because I'd never been involved in the family court system before. I didn't know that it's very unprofessional environment compared to other like places in law, like criminal courts, like the things that you hear and see and the things that people get away with in family court, they don't actually happen in other areas of court. It's the biggest circus, and people are really starting to rise up about this. Yeah. And there has been this trend. There was a trend for decades where mothers were just automatically getting custody. And I'm not a proponent of that. You know, like I think that every best interest factor should be taken into consideration. And North Carolina has its own list of best interest factors, like 20, 25 of them. Every state kind of has similar ones. And that whether you're the mother or the father, the best interest factors matter and not the gender. But now there's been a swinging, overcorrection that has happened where now you have fit, competent, loving mothers losing their children. And oftentimes in the post-COVID era, it has to do with their stances on the way they handled COVID, on the way they've handled vaccines for their child, and all the medical freedom stuff that's coming up. Homeschooling has been used against mothers now. So you have
that's sad. It's crazy.
And it is actually unbelievably common. I have connected with thousands of people. My DMs are so impossible to wade through because I have story after story after story ever since I came out about what has happened in my case. Now, for 2 years during this custody battle, I was completely silent because I think that my private life and, my child deserves that privacy. And I naively was giving the justice system a chance to do the just thing. Mm-hmm. I never imagined that I would have every other weekend visitation of the son that I raised. I taught him how to read. I taught him how to swim. I taught him how to ride a bike. Like, his dad was around sometimes. And he was dealing with his own mess. He was dealing with his own mess, and I supported him in that. But now he is using a corrupt system, and he obviously has no integrity, but he's using a corrupt system to get me back, for leaving him, for meeting my now husband, who's amazing.
Yeah.
We have one on the way, and we're very excited about more children, and knowing that I truly have that life partner makes me feel very sorry for my firstborn, who is now caught in, this system for the next 12 years of his life. So of course, when I was sued for full custody, I said, you know what, at that time, it was 14 years of custody battle that I had facing me. So I just applied to law school, and I got in. And so I'm finishing my first year of law school now, because this can't go on. I want to be able to have the legal knowledge for my own case, but also for other people, to help other people once I win this case and once we win our appeal. I love that what happened in the background.
I know. It's literally, I'm looking at my stupid cat over there. She hit my baby's toy, and I'm like, I'm really hoping this isn't. So those that heard that on speaker, it might have just turned off. The cat literally jumped on my baby's toy. So,
well,
anyway, that's what that sound is.
That is motherhood. That is real life there right now. Right.
Let me go turn it off. Let me go turn it off. She completely activated the toy. 1 second.
So I have another little boy on the way, and I know he's blessed to have 2 parents who are together and who actually, have each other's back. And I pray all the time that somehow God can heal this situation, even now. And that's why I don't mention my ex's name. I don't talk about where he lives now. I don't talk about where he works, even though these things would actually, the things about that and some of the details of the story that I don't tell in terms of how bad things got at home, and all the evidence and the details, the gory details of some of it, it would be more compelling when I sit here and tell people. But I'm purposely not doing that, because the reason why I'm telling my story is because I have submitted my appeal. I do believe that if I can get one reasonable set of eyes on our case, the decision will be reversed, or at least remanded back to the trial court, where we can start fresh with a brand new court, a brand new trial. However, I've learned my lesson with everything that I've been through, that I might not get that reasonable set of eyes, even though in North Carolina, it's a 3-judge panel that relooks at everything, the transcripts, which cost me $12,000 just to get the transcripts made. This
it's insane. They don't make it easy for your average day person.
No, I'm $72,000 in right now, and I'm looking down the barrel of about another 100,000. So
wow.
Yeah, it's life-changing, and it's totally debilitating financially for everyone, for us included. But we have the ability to bring in money or to liquidate assets and things like that. So over time, we won't have to stop fighting. So many people have to just give up. They like literally have nothing to give the system anymore. They've been bled completely dry. Not to mention, a lot of the times mothers in this situation are so traumatized, and I am too. Like, I was telling my husband before I even came down here that I was kind of dreading the conversation, and I really wanted to kind of get over it. And I was standing here with all these documents, and I was just like, my hands are shaking because it's just full. This is full of evil, and I have 4 boxes, big boxes of evidence binders and all of that stuff that I have a really hard time even like re-listening to the trial audio and taking notes, preparing for, because I have a court date in a month because my ex filed contempt against me for starting the Give, Send, Go. There's nothing in our order that says that I can't raise money for my appeal. And he filed contempt. So it's not like the contempt has any merit. It's just that it's a way to like wear you down and bleed you of your resources, right? So it makes people want to quit. And if I didn't have like a rock of a husband who's just like the most amazing person and who's just holds me up when I can't go any longer, and if I didn't have my faith, there's no way I'd be able to do what I'm doing right now. There's no way. I would have been a puddle. I would have been, I don't know, maybe I would have been like an inpatient in a psych ward at this point with everything that I've gone through and in all the things that I have gone through, whether it's being framed for January 6th or for the drag show blackout, nothing compares to this. This is by far the most stressful, and it's been, for the most part, a very silent battle because of the desire to keep things private if it was possible. But the courts, because this ruling that came down was so outrageous, and it's been 17 days now since I handed over custody of my son. He is now going to a school. He's not being homeschooled. Now, granted, he tested out of 1st grade because he reads at a 4th grade level because he's homeschooled, and you get advanced when you're homeschooled. I'm not saying like I'm some kind of stellar, like experienced homeschooling parent. It's just not as hard as you think. And if your kid is rather bright, they can pick up on things if they just get that one-on-one attention and they're not held back by the lowest common denominator in a class and all the other nonsense that goes along with being in school. So, he's, I know some people might be thinking like, how is he doing? I have kept him. Oh, I'm sorry. I have an alarm going off. I have kept him, fairly in the dark the whole time. So as much as it's possible, he has no idea. Now, when he asks me a direct question, I don't lie. So when he asks like why he has to go live with his dad, I tell him because there's a judge involved in our situation, and your dad brought the judge into this decision, and the judge made that decision, but I'm not going to stop fighting for you. Like, that's how I do it. But I hype everything up. I'm encouraging. I want him to have a childhood. I don't want him to feel broken or, but he still does because kids know what's rightly ordered, like by natural law, that you have a mother and a father, and then they're married and they live together. And like, he knows that he's not in a situation, even though he's only 6, he knows that this isn't normal. And he knows that, a lot of his friends don't have step parents and all of that. Okay. So he knows that his life is not like everyone else's, but we talk about how you can offer up your suffering and how there are a lot of people, who don't have perfect situations and they can still become saints, and you can actually become saints through your suffering. And you, and this world is not perfect, and even adults make mistakes. And we all need Christ's forgiveness, and we're all working towards heaven. And that is the only place where there's going to be no suffering. And, he called me the other night crying, asking to come home. And I just tried to get him to not think about it so that he could sleep. And I try to get him excited for the next day of school when I do get to talk to him. And, you know, I pray for him constantly. And that's probably the only thing that gets me through it. Like I often feel that if I hadn't consecrated him, and if like my family wasn't consecrated to the Immaculate Heart, and I wasn't like under the mantle of Our Lady, I think I would fall off the face of the earth. Like that's how it feels. It really feels like a death. And, you know, my house is quiet and his room is empty. And I just have to believe that when I prayed to my Father who loves me, and I asked him for a fish, he's not giving me a serpent. I asked him for bread, he's not giving me a stone. And I don't understand that now, but there's a reason for all of this. And maybe it's because, you know, going through this and being at his dad's house for a while, or seeing me fight for him, is going to change the course of his life. And maybe he will avoid losing the faith in his 20s like I did. And if that's the case, then it's all worth it. You know, it's all worth it. Or maybe I am meant to try to change the system. I don't know. I mean, so far, like, doors have been opening. I haven't been given any kind of direct messages or indications that God's will is for me to not keep fighting. So I'm going to keep fighting as long as there is a avenue. Yeah. And the reason why I came out and I talked about my story to begin with, I mean, I could have just kept doing what I was doing and stayed silent and just did the next thing in the judicial process. Okay, now I'm going to file the appeal. Well, because I have been so let down by the justice system in this case, even though it was only one judge, I know that this is a systemic problem. It's not just one judge in one county. It's all over the country. Conservative mothers who have made choices for their children that go against the mainstream, or who have been vocal against the ills and evils of this world, are losing their children. And since I know that, I don't trust this appellate court. And I'm preparing now for a North Carolina and U.S. Supreme Court bid. And there's two things you need if you want to ever get the Supreme Court to take on your case. And them taking on a family court case is very rare. It does happen. But you need two things. One, you need to have a constitutional issue at stake. And obviously the First Amendment is what we're dealing with here. A First Amendment at a minimum, you know, like, but you also have just like the right to liberty and the pursuit of happiness and all of that. That's, you can't say that taking a child for no reason from their fit mother, which she put that I was fit in the findings, but then only gives me every other weekend. Whereas like the default is 50-50, but she didn't give me 50-50. And she believed every word that my ex said without any evidence. I had 7 witnesses all testifying to everything I was saying. He had nobody testifying against me. Nobody. Right. He had 0 person take the stand against me except for himself. Yeah. So you need a constitutional issue, which we have, and you need public interest. They don't take, I mean, there are a lot of constitutional abuses that happen all over this country every single day. But until it's a story that people care about, that has a precedential value, meaning it sets a precedent. And this absolutely does. I mean, think about what they can do to anybody in a custody battle. All they have to do because the justice system is based off of statute and case law. This is now the law in North Carolina. They can, any lawyer can pull up this case and say, as in this case, v. Rainey. Like I said, I'm not telling you the plaintiff's name, even though it is all public record and you could find it yourself. Like they can say, as in this case, this is similar. This is the way the judge ruled in this case. You should do the same. So there is a precedential nature here. Their public interest is increasing, because I'm not just going online and making viral videos to vent, because if I was going to do that, then I would be telling you the details of the trauma that I experienced in that relationship. I would be giving you things that would make you really hate this person or want to. But instead, I'm just sticking to the facts about biased court system and the way the politics were used in that system. Now, granted, I can't help but to say some of what my ex did to push that along, because that's part of an essential part of the story. But it is as important what I'm leaving out as what I'm telling, because it makes it clear that this isn't just like a vindictive person who lost, who just wants to get back at her ex. Really no. I mean, really no, because we have 12 years of this left. Whoever wins, we have 12 years of being in this child's life. And really, it's more than 12 years. I mean, he's going to get married someday, or he tells me that because he says he's not being a priest, but whatever. You never know. Moms can always hope about their sons. But, and how's that going to work? He'll be there, I assume, at the wedding and the baptisms and the graduations and all the future, sorrows and victories of our son. We will both be there. And it would be much better to be able to just put this all behind us. But of course, that's going to take, at this point, it's going to have to take a recanting. He doesn't have to go through and just say, oh, I lied on everything, because, he's already really perjured himself so many times that it's like a felony. So I'm not expecting him to come around and be like, I lied on the stand under oath, but dropping this case, giving me 50-50 at a minimum, trying to stop filing contempt motions for every single thing just to drag me in court and try to wear me down and bleed me my resources. You got to remember, like, he's the plaintiff in this case. He has filed every, aggressive, litigious motion since this whole thing started. And, there's no sign from me that that's going to end. So, I mean, that's what I pray for. But ultimately, I'm not here to ruin him. I'm here to have justice be served. And that might take the highest court in the land. And so the reason I have to speak out is because of that. I need to make sure that if the appeal doesn't go through, that I have a recourse. I have a next step that I can take. And so I'm not going to stop. I do expect that I expect that he is going to want, at this court date in a month from now, he is going to try to get the judge to put a gag order on me. Now, we have a different judge in our case, a third judge, new judge. Yeah. Which is good, because otherwise I would have to fight for venue changes. And I mean, she's got that previous judge has so many judicial complaints filed against her. I just added mine to the stack. And she got moved out of the county. So the county didn't want to deal with her anymore, I guess. And so now we have a new judge. She seems reasonable. I have no idea. But at the end of the day, she's not even going to be able to rule on anything except for contempt charges until the appeal comes back, which could be, in North Carolina, it takes at least a year to get your appeal back. And that's for simple cases. And our case isn't simple. No. So, I'll be in court in a month. I'll let you know how it goes. If they hold me in contempt, it could be criminal contempt for starting a give, send, go for my appeal. They might try to put a gag order on me. And of course, it's my First Amendment right to do everything that I'm doing. And it was my First Amendment right to do everything that I've done. So unlike the time in the military where I abided by a gag order, an unlawful gag order, so that they could, twist the narrative and use me as an example. Yeah, I won't be doing that this time. So
this is, now they're messing with your son, How does it feel, if I can ask, when your son, he comes every other week? So every other weekend, you get custody of your son. What do you do to emotionally prepare yourself for him coming and then having to leave again?
Well, I'm just so excited the whole time. You know, like we just did this. So we're at the very beginning of this. I plan the weekend meticulously. I get really excited. I mean, recipes and things we can, and like crafts we can do and places we can go. And, you know,
Yeah.
I basically jammed packed our very limited time together.
Yeah.
I try to also include like some academics because he's basically learning how to write his numbers and like basics of reading in his first grade class. But like when he was with me this past weekend, he was reading Oliver Twist. He is 6 years old. Like he knows how to tell time, but like they're not, he, you know, that they learn that in first grade. There isn't anything in first grade that he doesn't already know how to do. And like I would argue, well, I'm just hoping that it doesn't lead to behavioral issues. Like that's my number one concern, because I don't want him to get into this in his head that he's like a bad kid or something just because he's bored. But we're very lucky that his class size is really small. So like his teacher can give him like a lot of individual attention. And I just got my background check back so that I could be volunteer in the classroom now. I live 3 hours away.
Oh, wow.
You know, like
that's a lot, and you're pregnant.
I have lived, yeah, and I've lived several hours away since like February of 2 years ago. So it's not like I just moved away. You know, we've been doing this co-parenting from afar for a while, where the halfway point is like at the 1 hour, 15-minute like drop off in the middle kind of thing. Yeah. So if I'm going to go volunteer in the classroom, I'm leaving at 5 a.m. I'm going all day, and then I'm driving 3 hours back. But I would do that in a heartbeat, and I've been doing that for open houses, for, you know, teacher day testing. I mean, I'm driving a lot these days. Yeah, and I have until the end of December, which is my due date, and then I'm going to have to, you know, probably reel it back a little bit because I'll have a newborn, but I have a supportive husband who's going to be, you know, by my side this whole time and picking up where I can't do it. So I'm going to be continuing to fight for custody of Eli. I'm never going to stop. I've got, like I said, I mean, whether that means we have to change legislation in this country. I'm getting connected with, I mean, I've had phone calls with senators. I've had phone calls with high up people that are in nonprofits that you would recognize, like Freedom American kind of patriot nonprofits. Still working with, you know, getting advocacy. I'm working on getting amicus briefs, and I'm working on maybe having some funding. It's basically my full-time job now, is making phone calls and lining things up for what's going to be a very long battle. None of which I ever wanted. I never wanted any of this. I didn't want to be in court in the first place. And that's why I was working with him so much at the beginning, and giving him every weekend and giving him twice a day phone calls and all of that, until his status made that untenable. And so, yeah, I mean, I didn't know that this like whole world existed, and anyone going through it, I totally understand. And you just don't know unless you've had some touch point with it at some point. You mentioned earlier that you had some of experiences with it as a child, and it really is devastating. And you can see now why, like, Our Lady of Fatima said that the last battle will be against marriage and the family. I think it was her that said it. This is the battleground. It's a battleground, and it's the devil's playground, is these family courts in America, where just the worst kind of behavior is allowed, the most evil accusations, the hardest hitting betrayals. I mean, you can imagine what it was like, me getting this served by a sheriff to my house after just years of him having my back and being like a supportive fellow conservative. And then reading all of this just made me sick. I mean,
you just probably didn't recognize him in that.
No. Yeah. And you know, like, I do believe that the truth always comes to light. And I do think that the traps that our enemies set for us as Christians, they end up getting used on themselves. I mean, scripture talks about that. I actually made a reel, you can find it on social media, of like all the times in the Bible where it basically talks about like when evil ones plot against you, how, God is in your corner and fighting for you. And you just need to just remember that as you put on the full armor, and I try to just always, every day, just steel myself with the rosary and the sacraments, and just remember that like this life is a valley of tears. I'm certainly in that, and I feel like I've been in the battle for like 5 years now. But this one's certainly the hardest, and it's always that way when it comes to your kids and their, especially very young and innocent children are really, their lives are in the balance in this system that's just so evil. So I'm just really grateful that you let me take a lot of your time and to tell my whole story. And if people follow along, and the next big thing is figuring out what's going to happen in court in a month.
Yeah. And where can people, if they want to follow along the story, tell us where they can find you? And then is there anything that somebody that hears your story and wants to support you, what can they do anything about that right now?
Well, I have a petition that I'm going to get posted by the end of the week that just basically shows a future Supreme Court bid that there are people that care about this story and do not want me to lose my child, and don't think that anybody that has used their First Amendment rights or made decisions as a parent that goes against the grain should have to lose their child with no evidence to support that decision. And so I'm going to be putting that out on my social media, working on a website so that I can upload all of the court documents, but I have to redact them all first because there's a lot of personal information. Like I've explained on here, the reasons why I don't want to be revealing like unnecessary elements about my ex and his life into the public, beyond the fact that it already is public. I mean, I don't want to be the facilitator of that. And just staying laser focused on my purpose for why I'm doing this. The Give, Send, Go is still active. I reached my $12,000 goal for the transcripts that I needed for the appeal. I will undoubtedly need more help. It is, but I also recognize that there's a lot of people right now that are struggling financially, and I'm very grateful for the support that I've gotten so far. But yeah, it's still open. I need to probably increase the goal if it's going to continue to raise any funds, but I would certainly appreciate that. But ultimately prayers, because this is a spiritual battle, and like I do need that like hedge of protection. Like I do sometimes feel like it's too much. Like, the father of lies is very much playing center stage in this situation, and it really has from the beginning, between being the lies being told about me for January 6th, the lies that have been told about me about the drag show blackout, and then now the lies about me being like an unfit mother somehow, which the judge even said that I wasn't unfit. But
the being accused of being an unfit mother, that would personally hurt me the most.
And especially since, I did give up my career to be a stay-at-home mom. I have not gone back out into the workforce because I wanted to give my son the childhood that I had, because my mother, after, doing 5 years in the military after West Point, she was a stay-at-home mother to all 7 of us.
Wow.
And I think like all children deserve that. And
yes.
And then now it's like, what even am I? I'm a stay-at-home homeschooling mom of no one.
Sorry.
So
that's a hard one to carry.
And it's a bittersweet time. It's a bittersweet time in my life, because I have this joy of a new life, you know, and I'm 35. I wasn't sure that I would be able to get pregnant. And I was so overjoyed. We actually found out on our 1-year wedding anniversary that we were pregnant this past May. And so, you know, God gave me this consolation, but it is sometimes hard to really lean into that joy. You know, if you're having one child is being torn from you and you're getting another, but you've been blessed with another, it's very hard to like reconcile those feelings that are so opposite. And you feel almost guilty about getting excited about your new baby, but then you also feel guilty because that new baby deserves all the excitement. You know, I just realized the other day, I was like, should I have a baby shower? And like my husband, he doesn't have any kids. Like this is his first son, you know, and he deserves to have it done just the way I did it for my first, you know, like all of the things that come along with a new life and all the celebrations, and like, just, it's not that baby's fault that I am dealing with this loss and this stress and, you know, devastation on this one side of my life. But I also feel as though like any energy that I put towards the new baby is like energy that I'm taking away from Eli. And I know that this isn't like logical, but you know, these are my feelings. So
yeah, the mom guilt, I feel like gets me no matter what I do. I either, you know, like I'm constantly struggling with mom guilt. And I think you're struggling with that on such a more intense level. You're guilty in one way, you're guilty the other. It's like you can't win in your own mind. Whatever you do, you're doing something wrong. That's something I battle with. I think every mom that loves their children deeply battle with mom guilt. And I'm so sorry that you're in this place of you're torn. And yes, you have such a beautiful blessing on the way, and you're also dealing with your firstborn being taken from you. Man,
God does have a plan, and I'm telling you that mantra. I say that mantra to myself. I mean, I shouldn't use the word mantra. Can't think of a better word, but like I say it to myself. It's like a prayer. I say 50 times a day. Like, He's not giving me a stone. Like He's not giving me a serpent. He's not giving me a serpent. Like I have to say it all the time, because I'm like, because otherwise you forget. Like you might think that God hates you. You know, or that He has condemned every good thing that you ever tried to do, because you've always been punished by the world every time.
There's a bigger, and I think you telling your story on your platform here, and I'm sure other places, it's going to just catch fire. A lot of mothers and husbands and fathers are going through this on their own level, and I think they need somebody to like show them they can fight. I think that, like we talked about earlier, you have this gift within you to just fight when you see a freedom being infringed upon. And there's parents out there that need to see an example of yourself, that are like, fight with everything you have in you. Because it's one thing when they want to make you wear a mask and see how you reacted to them wanting to put a mask on you. Now they're taking away your child. This is where I think God's going to use you in probably the most powerful way. Like, think about, like, go back to Braveheart. William Wallace was willing to be a simple man. He was this highly intelligent, at least the character, highly intelligent, knew multiple languages, knew the art of war. And he was like, I just want to live on a farm, and I want to have a wife and multiple children. And they came in and they took his wife. And this freaking warrior that they didn't know was there got unleashed. And he literally changed the course of history. And it was like, so I think on a level, that's kind of my prediction, is they've messed with the wrong mother. And God's going to use you in a very powerful way.
His will be done, I hope. I hope that you're right.
Well, everybody listening will, I hope, pray and do what they can to support you. And I'm sorry you're going through this. Thanks,
Sam.
You're welcome. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. And thanks for listening.
Absolutely. Have a good day.
respect what you said. But remember that these men have lands and castles. It's much to risk.
And the common man that bleeds on the battlefield, does he risk less?
No. But from top to bottom, this country has got no sense of itself. Its nobles share allegiance with England. Its clans war with each other. Right. If you make enemies on both sides of the border, you'll end up dead.
We all end up dead. It's just a question of how and why.
I'm not a coward. I want what you want, but we need the nobles.
We need them.
Aye.
Nobles. Now tell me, what does that mean to be noble? Your title gives you claim to the throne of our country. But men don't follow titles. They follow courage. Now our people know you. Noble and common, they respect you. And if you would just lead them to freedom, they'd follow you. And so would I.